Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the webcast, Lean Process Improvements and Project Delivery Initiatives at Massachusetts Port Authority, presented by Sustainable Development Division and the Massport Authority. I am Amy Straub, and I will provide technical support for today's webcast. I have a few opening instructions before I turn our program over to today's presenters. During the presentation, all audience members will be muted. We will take questions after the presentation is completed. You may submit questions at any time during the presentation. When you have a question, please type it in the questions box on your webinar interface. Please draft the wording of your question as clearly as possible for the presenter. After the presentation, there will be a Q&A session that will be moderated by John Corliss. Both the PowerPoint and a recorded version of the presentation will be made available online on the webinars page on the IISE website 5 to 8 days after the presentation. Now I will turn it over to John Corliss to introduce you to today's presenters, Dr. Luciana Berti and Darcy DeGeorge.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Sustainable Development Division, I'd like to welcome you all. Each year, the division recognizes a government or nonprofit organization that has achieved superior results in applying industrial and systems engineering tools and methods to improve their own sustainability and to contribute to the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In doing so, we hope to illustrate that almost everything that industrial and systems engineers do contributes to organizational, community, and global sustainability. We also hope to inspire at least some ISEs to steer their careers in a direction where they can take a sustainability leadership role in businesses, governments, or nonprofit organizations and help address these critical challenges in an era of climate change. This year's recipient of the Excellence in Sustainable Development Award is the Massachusetts Port Authority. I'm very happy that they are with us today to share the exciting work they have been doing and the successes that they've achieved. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Luciana Berti, Director of Capital Programs and Environmental Affairs at Massport. As director, she's responsible for the development, administration, and execution of the capital investment program for all Massport facilities. She leads the authority's environmental permitting and management, safety program, utilities management, and in-house design and design technology integration teams. In her role, Luciana is leading the shift of the capital programs toward a more innovative, progressive, data and design technology-driven department. By adopting Lean, Scrum, and Lean construction principles, she's also very committed to create a culture of continuous improvement, focusing on delivering best-in-class infrastructure projects to Massport customers. Beyond this, I know that Luciana is a leading advocate for the adoption of Lean engineering and construction at Massport, where all of the infrastructure contracts that I've seen now require a Lean engineering and construction approach, but also for other state agencies and New England in general. We also have with us Darcy DeGeorge, a principal at Stantec. Darcy has more than 25 years of experience managing large multidiscipline design and construction projects. She's a registered professional engineer and holds the Associated General Contractors of America Certificate of Management in Lean Construction and is a Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. Darcy is a Lean champion at Stantec, introducing and educating their transportation sector about its many benefits and opportunities. Darcy has partnered with Massport to provide Lean training for their capital programs and environmental affairs department and develop Massport standards, Lean guidebooks, and templates. So I'm very pleased to be able to introduce both Luciana and Darcy and for them to be able to share the exciting work they're doing. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Amy. And thank you to the Institute of Industrial and System Engineers for inviting us here. So Darcy and I are very excited, and we'll try to present and we'll try to show what we have done and what we are continuing to do. Next slide, please. So today's presentation, great. today's presentation, we're really, I'm trying to focus, and we will try to focus a couple of minutes on just an introduction, who Massport is and what do we do. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with us. Second, we'll discuss about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, our internal lean process we have done from more lean as an organization, the implementation of those lean and then lean element. And then Darcy will cover some of our lean training that we are doing in-house and talk to you about some additional resources. So who's Massport? Sorry, you probably hear my dog in the background. Next slide, please. So we have three major line of business. So we, the first one is probably the major, the one more quote unquote famous, is our aviation. We own, manage, and operate Logan Airport, Hanscom Field, and Worcester Airport. The biggest airport is obviously Logan, and I'm assuming that a lot of you already landed many times on in our facility. But aside from the aviation piece, we are also a port authority. So we have the Conley terminal, and you'll see on the image on the right, we have a Conley terminal, we have a cruise port, and we also own some seafood. We are some seafood landlord and the auto port. And finally, our third line of business is real estate. We are big real estate agent in some way. We issued RFQs, we issue RFP for developers to build on our facilities. And you can see still on the image on the right, we develop 99-year leases in the South Boston and some other maritime, focus on maritime properties. If we just focus a couple of more seconds on Logan, next slide. Logan, it's from a aerial perspective, it's a very small airport. We only have 4 terminals. We were the 17th busiest airport in pre-COVID, and in only 2,400 acres. We have 6 runways, 6 major runways, and 4 terminals. So we have, and we are surrounded by many communities. So every time we discuss and we try to work, we need to consider the communities that we are surrounded about. Roughly 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I took over in the middle of the pandemic. I took over as a director after being deputy director for 8 years. One of the major shifts, and as John mentioned, a major element, is really try to rethink what capital program would we deliver as value. And you will hear through the entire presentation that I always talk about, instead of organization, like how we are organized, what are the line between units within my department, I talk about value stream, because at the end, what we do, we are a service department. We are servicing our client, and our client, the customer, is definitely the passenger that uses our facility, but the clients are our aviation, our maritime, our real estate, and our airline that use also our facility. So the big vision of our department is really to transform our industry. When we say our industry, it's our aviation industry, our design and construction and real estate industry. And we want to provide value. We don't want just to deliver projects. We want to provide value while delivering projects. And obviously, as a fundamental value stream is actually delivering the best in class infrastructure that are needed. Our department is divided, it's organized in 4 value stream, in 4+1 value stream. And lines exist within this 4+1 major value stream, but obviously is the capital program development. We facilitate the discussion and develop the 5-year SIP the capital improvement plan. It's a 5-year rolling SIP. We also manage all the programming, visioning, design, and construction of everything that gets built in our facility. A major element is our environmental and sustainability and resiliency piece, and then the technology. The technology for a long time has been seen only as an add-on, but the more we embrace the technology and the more we see how technology can really produce additional value, if you look at virtual design and construction, if you look at them. But all and foremost, what I want to make sure that we don't start delivering silos of excellence, right? We can deliver value, but if we don't try to connect the 4 pillars, we are basically staying within our little silos. So the performance optimization and excellence is critical to how we deliver, to the consistency, to better and deliver our projects in any way we can. So what are we going to be focusing today? It's in the next slide. And really, we're going to be focusing on the sustainability piece. And when we talk about the sustainability piece, we also, next slide, we'll talk about the net zero. One of the major goal and strategic priorities for the current CEO, Lisa Wieland, is really to reach net zero by 2031. And net zero for an airport, it's easy and not easy, because if you look at the 100% of our emission, Massport owned, we call scope 1 and scope 2, our own. The bigger emission are the airline, the airline and the airplane. But something that our own emission, it's really 17% of the major airport emission. But it doesn't mean that we don't have to work on influencing the 70+ % of the emission of our partners. So we developed, we had a high-level roadmap that was issued in March, and we hired an additional sub-consultant to help us really identify what are our projects and what needs to be done to be able to achieve the net zero 2031, that is the 75th birthday of Massport, and do it in reality even before the 2050 goal, that is the state goal. The other element that we're going to be talking today is the +1, the performance optimization. And I will now pass it to Darcy to go to the next step.
All right, thanks, Luciana. So as John introduced, Massport was named IISE 2022 Excellence in Sustainable Development Award winner. Today's webinar, we're mostly gonna focus on the lean process improvements at Massport. But we did want to carve out some time to overview the sustainable development portion of the award. So the award submission asked us to identify direct and indirect impacts on the 17 UN goals. So in our application, we identified 2 direct measurable impacts, and those are circled here in green. Goal number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Massport directly supports this goal through their climate resiliency objectives. And goal 11, sustainable cities and communities, again, directly supported through Massport sustainability initiatives and their standards. And then on the bottom here, an indirect impact circled in gray, goal 17, partnerships for the goals. So for those of you in the Boston area or aviation industry, Massport has been quite active in sharing their forward thinking about emergent technologies like Lean and BIM that Luciana just spoke about, and sustainability initiatives to drive the greater good of the community. So if you're interested in more detail about Massport sustainable development, our award submission included a good deal of data about their resiliency, sustainability, and net zero initiatives. So I wanted to mention that in our meeting with John and Amy the other day, John talked about the many other goals we could have listed in our application. So I circled a couple more in here in orange. Goal 13, climate action, supported by the Net Zero initiative Luciana just spoke about. And goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Massport has really made a priority of diverse teams in their contract and selection criteria. So this leads us into connecting the dots between Massport's process improvements and the support of the UN goals. So the lean processes and tools, they've enabled Massport to really prioritize sustainability and resiliency in their design and construction. They're now purposefully ingrained in the design right at the outset, making them a priority. So they're not an afterthought, they're not an obligation. And this focus has really enabled the authority to build a safe, reliable, and responsible infrastructure. So now Luciana will present some process improvements they've made at Massport.
Thank you, Darcy. So as Darcy mentioned, I will go to the next slide, please. I will focus very high level on the many process improvement efforts that the Capital Program Department has done in the past 10 years. And yes, we started 10 years ago. I will not go in any details because I can actually speak for an hour for each of them. So please, if you are interested to go in any deeper, to have any deeper dives in any of these items, feel free to reach out at the end of the presentation. There is an email address. I'm more than happy to spend time. So today you just get a very high level presentation. A bigger question every time we are looking into asking for a consultant like Darcy who wants to work for Massport to be part of a process improvement, I'm always asking myself, great, we ask our consultant to be lean, what about us, right? I'm of the opinion that we cannot make requirements to our consultant when we first don't try to make the same level of effort. So we will go through some. So we have two major efforts that we really identified and took charge. One is to look internally on how to improve our internal processes, and at the same time asking and relating this, educating the consultant and make sure that the consultant are embracing the same idea of continuous improvement that we have. Next, please. So we have in this slide, so we start to understand our baseline. Where are we? What do we do? And 10 years ago, when I started at Massport, I was pretty new to anything, really. I experienced Massport only by traveling to Logan. So I had no idea what the department really did, how we did it. Not even the first few slides, how extensive our impact is. So I started looking on where can we really focus our major attention and where was our major pain points. So we look at consulting invoices. It was taking us a long time, contractor payment, and then also internally, obviously for those two is the client, the customer, it's all of you who work for us and like to get paid quickly, right? But also internally, what is internally that we do that it's inhibiting, that it's slowing the process? So we look at meeting, we look at decision making, how long and why, and who needed to be involved, project reporting, and also the technology. In 2000, starting in 2012, when I started the Massport, technology was huge advancement. So we just needed to understand how to use it. So in the next slide, you'll see some of our summary baseline metrics. And as John mentioned, this was presented as part of our submission. So we'll be looking at really the high level, and you will see the results at the end later on in the presentation. So a lot of hands off, 20 hands off before even the consultant, before within my department. And again, is not if let's focus on the invoice, for example, it's not 20 steps, 20 hands off between department. It's just within my department. It was appalling. Similar, 18 contractor, pages and pages of guidelines on how to do things that were 3 volumes, highly, very organized, but we all know I always say paper is as updated as when you print it, right? Because the things can change quickly, reporting, project work planning, and you can see here, we'll go one by one, and we'll see some of the improvements that we did. So in our process, let's say the high-level process is the same. And if you have knowledge of lean design and construction, Lean Six Sigma, it's really the same, right? So we were trying to use some consistency. So identify the process, identify the challenge, and I understand the current state. Then evaluate it with the process mapping, develop implementation, the future implementation, rollout, learning. And something very different between the implementation that we have done in Massport and an implementation that I've done on a previous organization is the last piece. The rollout and the learning is critical. Oftentimes, a lot of process improvement efforts fail, not because the first 3 steps are not done, because the 4th step is done in a rush and the 5th step is not done and is not checked. So we all know that change is difficult, and it's easy for people to just go back when nobody is quote unquote watching. So the next slide shows really high level. One of my personal goals is to make sure that we share what we learn with the rest of the world. And when I say the rest of the world, I really mean it, because all of these guidelines and things are on our website. And I tell everybody, take it. We spent a year effort even on looking at how to modify our contracts to incorporate lean and BIM. The contract, it's on our website. And I tell any other agency, go take it. Going back to changing the industry, if what I learn, we'll just keep it to ourselves. We're not changing anybody. We're just changing ourselves. And that will not make for a better industry going forward. So looking for, without finger pointing, looking for waste and try to eliminate the waste and do it continuously. So the top image is the roadmap for BIM implementation. Did we do everything on that? No, we didn't. We're actually looking to update it pre-COVID, and now we are looking at that too. The last planner system. The last planner system, it's a Lean Six Sigma. But how do we do it? If you want to know, it's on the website. And the project delivery guide is actually something that we do internally. But all these efforts brought us to some good results. So if you really look at the next slide, you see some of the major results. So we went from 20 steps to 6 steps on consultant invoices. This is eliminated. And to me, 6, it's even too much, but there are some steps, we call it the orange step, that are unnecessary, but you have to do it for the regulation of law. But from 18 to 6. That's a huge improvement. And the way we did it, that was actually, those 2 were the first 2 that we did in 2013. We were able to eliminate, we were not paying consultant for 90 days. And we were able to eliminate it. And we are able now to pay within the 30 days. So the project delivery guide, we eliminated the 3 volumes that were not updated for ages. And we have one location, it's on our internal system, which is accessible to our consultant that want to do work with us, in which we identify, I don't know if we have some slides, where we identify who needs to do what, for what reason, and there are links to the document, to some forms that if they need to be pre-filled. So the only location, if needs to be updated, is the only places that it will go and will be done. Decision making is a great, and Darcy will touch upon when she looks at the training that we develop. We standardize how we make decisions. So the decisions are tracked. Decisions are, I call it objectified. Oftentimes decisions are subjective. Who the top is title, it's in the room, makes the decision. That is not lean. So we democratize, let's say, decision making, and making sure that any decision is as objectively done as it can be done, right? There is always a hint of subjectivity in decision making, and continuous improvement. We are doing a lot of retrospective. Usually we in common practice to do lesson learned at the end of the project. What we try to do is retrospective every 3 months. On, for example, we have the Terminal E project, which you see an image just behind me. Project started in 2017 and won't be done until 2023. If we have to wait until 2023 to do lesson learned, first, we have forgotten whatever happened in 2017. And two, it's too big of a project not to learn while you are in it. So we do it every 3 months. Sometimes a great session, other times, but then we learn and we'll go from there. So next. If you look at our history, you can go to the next slide. I don't want to spend too much time here. We started in 2013. Again, this is not an easy process. It's a continuous process. And a recommendation that I tell everyone: don't try to bite bigger than you can. Just take little steps. Continuous improvement, right? We started with some lean training. Then we went to the BIM guideline. We started to do some knowledge sharing, implementation of the requisition, the project delivery guide, the lean delivery guide, and the lean training. And if we look at the sustainability piece, we did similarly. So we did in 2014, Massport was, I think, the first airport that had a person dedicated, a program manager dedicated to resiliency. But from the resiliency in 2014, we developed some guidelines, the Logan Sustainability Management, all the way to 2021 with a net zero, and 2022 with our net zero and larger climate action plan. So the next slide shows the project delivery guide. This is again a high level. The 100 plus pages manual became the project delivery guide on our intranet. It's called the Knowledge Owl, and they are updated. People go there. We used to training. The next slide, again, those are the slides that we submitted also for the presentation. You see the original value stream mapping of 20 steps, again, just within our department, and we went from 20 to the 6 steps. And you can see the green one are only 2. So in reality, of the 6 steps, only 2 bring value. Which means the customer will be willing to pay for. But the yellow one, other 4 yellow one, are those that our internal audit probably had, because we are highly regulated, we are a governmental agency, we have to put in for audit purposes. So the next one is the dashboard. So every project delivers dashboard, and we track on the left side of this image, you're probably illegible. You see that there are some steps. We do pool planning. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the pool planning, but we track the promises and what's not been done. And critical to me is why you are not able to deliver what you promised you were able to deliver by this date. And the why is not to blame, but is, okay, is there a consistent problem that we have to address and eliminate? I hate workarounds, because workarounds, gets things done, but guess what? They don't eliminate the problem. They just make it they just leave it there, and it's easier for the person behind you that has to address the same problem to just eliminate it. The last planner system minimum guidelines, again, it's on our website, is I make a joke here. I say it's a minimum standard. That means that every project needs to do at least what's in this little book. The last planner system, it's much bigger things. The lean design and construction, it's a bigger things, but something that has to be done on any project, no matter the size, is what's inside this book. The BIM roadmap I mentioned earlier, it's the integration of technology, virtual design and construction in delivering project. And the knowledge sharing, the next slide, is really, I oftentimes present and go to the detail, and this is just a list of presentation, because the more the industry, I learn by listening to other organizations. And then I hope that other organizations learn from what our experience is. The Massport Sustainability and Resiliency guideline, which is it's something that we are actually in the process of updating. We did develop those first one in 2013, 2014, and after in 2021, under the light of the larger climate action plan and the net zero, we have seen the need to actually update this, and we have consultants that are working with us on updating this. And then the next slide is just a tease in what Darcy will talk about, our lean internal rollout of our lean internal training. Darcy?
All right. Thank you. Okay, so you can tell Luciana is very focused on process improvement. So she committed to a formal education program for her capital programs and environmental affairs department of 70 people. So in the spring, we held 6 remote training classes, 90 minutes each, and it was mandatory training for the entire department. The intent of the training was to provide awareness level education of the lean processes and tools. Then in 2023, we will hold 6 more training classes. These will be in person, and these will be mandatory for the project managers. So the intent of that training will be actual application, so the PMs can be confident in project level implementation of their own. So now I'm just going to show you again, we're staying super high level here, an overview of what that training covered. So module 1 was our overall introduction to lean. The department that Luciana oversees is a mixed audience of project managers, construction supervisors, accounting, admin, permitting, planning, you name it, they have it. So to capture everyone's interest, we knew it was really critical for the attendees to understand that our training applied to each of them personally, not just for the project delivery teams themselves. So right off the bat, we acknowledge lean's reputation. It's in manufacturing. It started at Toyota. It's popular in vertical construction, particularly in healthcare. So we really tried to set the stage, reinforce that lean is a delivery or management or a process approach. So it is applicable to all sectors and specialties, including the public sector, and it's scalable to all projects or processes. It's not just for vertical construction. It's not just for project delivery. So once that stage was set, we introduced the 6 principles of lean, again, at a very high level. We used the Lean Construction Institute graphic that's shown on the left here. And then each of our following training modules, we highlighted a lean principle to teach the concept in a little bit greater detail. So this middle image real quickly here is Massport's recommended team structure for high performing teams. It's a structure that blends the project team, cluster teams, core team, executive team for smooth communication. And then over to the right, the almighty expected outcomes agenda. getting back to basics on purposeful meetings and thoughtfulness about the outcome of our meetings and our topics. So module 2 is where we focused on value, waste, and conditions of satisfaction. Luciana spoke quite a bit about value. During these sessions, we explored the concept of value from the customer perspective, and of course, the waste that brings no value to our customers. The middle graphic here is a poster that Luciana and her team created. It's hanging in their walls in Boston. It identifies the 7+1 lean wastes to keep them top of mind. But the core of this module was explaining the value of setting conditions of satisfaction, tracking them, and measuring them for success. There's been a big push at Massport to define the COS in partnership with their stakeholders, the folks she was just talking about, aviation, real estate, right in the room together. The photos on the right of this slide here are from a project we're currently working on at Logan's Terminal B. And in that session, every stakeholder had the opportunity to participate in actually defining the project priorities. It's pretty powerful. And I'll just mention that little COS logo up there, again, another image Luciana's team created, and is also posted around the building as a gentle reminder to always be driving toward your COS. Module 3 was our workflow module. We introduced the last planner system, emphasizing the importance of collaborative planning, transparency, reliability, and accountability. Last planner system is a trademarked workflow tool from Lean Construction Institute. And as Luciana mentioned, Massport developed their own minimum standards guides to set clear expectations of how Massport will deliver the last planner system. So our module overviewed the 5 connected conversations of last planner. The photo here on the lower left shows what's called a phase pull planning session, where the project team gets together either remotely or in person in this particular case, to develop a task level schedule. We went on to explain the importance of clearing our constraints to make our work ready, the accountability and task performance that Luciana just spoke about, and finally, if we didn't meet those task promises, how do we learn from them based on that performance? Module 4 focused on sound decision making and how we kind of need to unlearn some of our old habits to allow for more reliable decisions. So we introduced the 2 decision-making processes that, to Luciana's point a couple minutes ago, more objective. They use a visual, transparent, and systematic approach to making decisions. One was choosing by advantages, and the other, the A3 decision-making process. Over to the right, you see Massport has a standard A3 format for their department. And just as another note, this year we've been holding a lot of choosing by advantages sessions, and we've been holding those with Massport stakeholders to be sure that we're prioritizing the conditions of satisfaction and getting participation from the stakeholders while the decisions are being made, and not after the fact. So the goal of that collaboration or the value there is we're focusing on the customer, and we're inherently reducing the waste of rework that can come from misalignment in our decision making. Module 5, continuous improvement, of course, starts with the famous plan, do, check, act cycle. Taking time to understand the problem, making a plan to fix the problem, checking that the fix actually resolved your problem, and then finally acting by formally adopting your new process. In the middle here, the plus delta tool, it was a quick win opportunity for our trainees to try out right away, able to collect live feedback at the end of your meetings and be able to improve yourself for the next one. And Luciana just spoke on regular retrospectives, a little bit of a more formal process done throughout a project life or a process life, so that you gain the benefit of making improvements. The session is really a reflection on your performance to date, your accomplishments, your challenges, and creating some improvement strategies. The retrospectives, again, are another all-inclusive collaborative session. Full team participates, and everybody's working together toward positive change for your project or your department or your process. And our final module 6 was a summary of our training modules. And we really used this time to reinforce the importance of building a lean culture before you're just pushing out the use of tools. We used a mural during our training sessions. This really encouraged the sort of all voices heard atmosphere. We used the digital whiteboard to collect feedback, ask questions, really all of our interactive pieces during training. And this was a big hit with the attendees. Luciana recorded our training sessions and has them available for ongoing reference and for future use. So as with any teaching atmosphere, you don't want attendees to just log in, hear you talk, and check a box that their training is complete. We want them to engage and absorb the information that they learned. So following training, the whole department took a competency check. The check was 30 questions, multiple choice, true or false. The results were excellent, as you can see here. All 70 people passed, and 65% passed on their first try. I like to think that was in part because of the awesome trainers, but I might be a little biased. And then just closing out here, in the spirit of continuous improvement, we performed a plus delta at the end of each module, and then we distributed a survey link at the end of the full training class. And all the feedback was anonymous. We had quite positive results, especially, I guess I'll say, for mandatory department-wide training. The top 2 graphs, most respondents felt that the training course was useful and would help them better complete their day-to-day work. Now remember, the department is varied with many different specialties, so this was really a big win for us. And then the bottom 2 graphs, the majority would recommend the training to their colleagues and found the material clear and easy to understand. So I see Luciana popped in.
Yeah, so Darcy, something that you can stay on video, something that I think was critical, as you hinted, everybody in my department, so from not only project manager, from the administrative team to my consultant on-site team, all the way, I even attended. I helped them develop it. I even attended because I didn't do the test though, because they would have been cheating. And they actually reviewed the questions when you did it. It was critical to me to make sure that everybody understood the importance, because it's not only we're going to have a second set of training, just focus on project manager, much more deep dive into the technicalities, but we needed to make sure that everybody had at least some general understanding of the continuous improvement mindset that we want to instill. And it can be done from reviewing a document to delivering a project, right? So it doesn't really matter. Those tools can be applied on any settings, in any business. And we give a little certificate to everybody who passed the test, actually to even the second time. We also were timing. So we gave 1 week from the last class to do the competency check. So, and then as mentioned before, Darcy, you can go to the next slides. And mentioned before, we want to, Darcy and I and the Massport-Capital program as a whole, I want to make sure that this information is available. Now, the training is not, the training that Darcy covered is not publicly available. But a positive feedback is that I presented, again, capital program, it's one of the major departments, but it's one department of a large organization. I present a similar presentation to other departments, and the CEO asked to take this training and to develop it and deliver to everybody else in Massport. So I'm now working with HR to make it less capital program focused, and so that people in HR department can do it, people in A&F. Actually, the CFO reached out to me and said, okay, if I want to start, what should I do? And this is my intent, to make sure that we even with making this document available, the intent is, where do we start? We'll give you where we started. Might work for you, might not work for you. You only know your organization. But a slide that I really love, I stole from the training, is the next one. Until we stay in our comfort zone, it's very, very good, but nothing magic will happen. So we have to push ourselves outside with the confidence and that magic will happen, but it will never happen inside our comfort zone. So my last slide before thanking you all and asking John to come in is like, don't worry, just try to do magic by getting out from your comfort. So thank you again. Next slide, here are our email addresses. Feel free to reach out to Darcy and me, and we will be more than happy to continue the conversation. John, we'll give it back to you.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. At this point, we encourage you, anybody who's listening, to enter in any questions into the question and answer part if you have any questions of Luciana or Darcy on this great presentation. While we're seeing whether or not people get involved, I'm curious as to if you could talk a little bit about your path in terms of how were you introduced to Lean and what made you so passionate about implementing this at Massport.
I'll be happy to. Darcy, unmute and what do you call it? Yes, show your camera too. Yeah. Yes, I'm more than happy. Thank you, John. Yeah. I stumbled into Lean, let's put it that way. I went to the GSD, the School of Design at Harvard, and my thesis was implementing technology into the delivery process. So I'm an architect, so I was very focused on implementing technology. And at DCAM in 2004, I was fascinated by implementing BIM and VDC. BIM, at the time, it was only building information modeling. And I was applying it in projects, and I was applying it using the traditional delivery process. And my head is kind of a research. And I was frustrated by the fact that no matter how much technology I was putting in, the process was not allowing me to see the major benefit of implementing technology. So I started researching, how can I change the process? And that's how I stumbled into Lean design and construction. So then from that, I went all the way to Lean. I became a DCAM, which is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the building department for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I implemented Lean Six Sigma, Lean design and construction there too. Trained a bunch of people, and then that brought me here to Massport. And obviously I did, okay, let me take everything I've learned there and let's bring it here. Darcy?
Well, you know my answer. I was introduced to it by Luciana. So my first Lean project was the Framingham Logan Express Garage, 2013 or 2014. And you live through it once and you get hooked. I'm very much about process, very much about efficiency. I get frustrated by the same things everyone else does of inefficiency. And that was kind of it for me. I was hooked and have gone through, as you saw, more certificates and more learning, and now actually able to partner with Massport to do some training for their people. That's like dream job. So that's how I got into it.
So I see a question from Brian. So Darcy is not one of my employees. Darcy does not work for me. She works for Stantec. And let's say she's one of the protege. There are 3 people that really, something that I'm a teacher, I teach WPI, I love teaching. Something that is, that's beneficial to me is when I see that people like Darcy, people like another person that helped me, Ryan from WSP, Ryan Quota from WSP, and another one from ACOM, take this and then implement it in their companies. So now Darcy, it's implementing Lean for other projects, for other clients. And Ryan is doing the same things. Is there anyone else? So in other, let's say in other departments, there are, let's say the other departments are using my Lean consultants. Other departments do not have a director or a deputy director when I was that has that passion, but they understand the value. I have Lean consultants, and oftentimes aviation comes say, can I use your Lean consultant to do this process improvement? And I said, go ahead. Recently, IT has advertised for a continuous improvement staff. So slowly, but surely the change is happening.
I want to point out you'll probably be interested in that. Brian is a Lean Six Sigma black belt, but he's also written some books of experiences called Lean for Good, where nonprofits and stuff have implemented Lean. So there's another question on choosing by advantage, that this was a new term, and Zach asked if you could give a brief description.
Darcy, go ahead.
Okay, choosing by advantages. It is there's a little variable in how complicated or how simple it can be. And again, it goes back to what Luciana said in terms of trying to make our decisions more objective than subjective. So the end of the day, you are applying your facts and you're applying your, I'll call it your priorities, but CBA has a whole language of its own, so I'll try not to get into the language, but you're basically applying your priorities to the facts. Again, it's a collaborative process, so it's not Luciana deciding what her priority is. It's all the stakeholders in the room, or whoever's applicable to whatever we're deciding on. For example, a structural component, we have our structural team, but we also have capital program structural representatives. And it's a pretty systematic approach that anchors your facts and data to each other for your alternatives. And you end up with sort of as unbiased as opinions can be, an unbiased accounting of what your best technical solution is. Yeah. The interesting and tricky thing about CBA is you don't apply your cost factor to it until the very end, so that you identify your value of your alternative, and then at the end of the day, it's up to someone like Luciana, is the sticker price worth the alternative? So I don't know, Luciana, if you want to add anything more to that from your perspective.
No, you did great in explaining it. Oftentimes, when you have to evaluate alternatives, you say, okay, let's see the plus and the minus. Mm-hmm. I hate that because every plus obviously is a minus on the other hand. So what CBA kind of focuses is on the advantages and the weight of each advantage, right? So you evaluate every. If you have to go on vacation, I am one of those persons that even to go vacation, we use CBA, but don't tell my husband. But if we have to go on vacation, right, if you have to go home and see my parents or to go see a new place, right? There are plus and minuses on both ends. But then we'll evaluate. Last time let's assume that one, say, okay, go see your relatives. You have not seen it for two years. You highlight just the advantages, and then you weight based on the most critical. You call it a paramount. Which one is the most critical advantages? Is it looking for a new place better than not seeing your father, right? So if I've not seen my dad in 4 years, because I've not seen it, yes, that probably it's more important than if I've seen it last year, right? So it kind of start to weight the advantages and look at more objectively. It's the clients, my clients love it. And I was surprised because we have different way of doing it. We have three different, there is the more scientific one and the less scientific one, but it really eliminates all the subjectivity out as much as it can.
I know that we're getting close to the end of time, and we've got a couple of questions, but there's one that's one of my favorite questions, which is from a student saying, as a grad student, in this case, supply chain specialty, what do you think is the first step towards building a career towards sustainable projects with frugal operating processes? So if you've got a student who's really, is into this kind of stuff and really wants to get involved in sustainability, what's your advice?
Let's see, Darcy, do you want to start and then I'll chime in? You're closer to school than I am.
Oh my, yeah, it's goodness. My opinion on this stuff is always short-sighted versus the long view, and whether you're implementing lean or sustainability or resiliency, the impact now versus the impact of the future, right? So the frugal part is a problem. It's really, I'll just be blunt, it's tough to get the buy-in or the spend early, but it's always worth it in the long run. It's always worth it. So I think the step is find the person who has the long view, who understands, like Luciana, that the investment now is worth it. That's kind of my 2 cents. I don't know what you would add on to that.
Yeah, I think sustainability is it's every sector can apply lean, and as frugal as processes are, there are things that were put in place for reasons, right? Maybe now they are unnecessary. Oftentimes say, why are we doing this again? And people stop and say, oh, I don't really know. It's as much as people step back and don't take it as too personal, right? The invoicing process, I still have, it bothers me that I still have 4 steps that bring no value, but guess what? We have to leave it there, right? But look at the bright side. We went from 20 to 6, right? We are really eliminated. So if there is a mindset that continuous improvement can always be done, I think it can be done in any sector, sustainable, process in projects, especially in the design and construction too. So I don't know, Shri, if I was able to answer your question, but.
I think my advice to Shri is that you got to be creative in your reading of job postings and stuff like that, that a lot of times there is much more opportunity there if you know how to position your experience and what your strengths are. And really it is taking your passion, I'm sure when Luciana graduated from school and stuff, she never expected to get hooked on lean, never expected that her career would follow the path that it's following, so it's a matter of being creative and following what you want to do and finding the right places where people are receptive to you doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Amy's going to jump in any second now. So I think that probably wraps us up, although there was a question on resistance, and maybe that's something that can be answered in the chat or something. But Amy, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for joining us today. In closing of today's webinar, I just wanted to remind you both the PowerPoint and a recorded version of the presentation will be made online on the webinars archive. And I really wanted to thank everyone for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Birdie, and thank you, Darcy. We really appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.